And so today we're going to be bringing out the story of Uncle Nearest. If you don't know about him, you'll learn about him today. Let's do it. All right. We are back. Drink of the week, Uncle Nearest. And so let's give some background on Uncle Nearest. This is a particularly good story in my eyes because this is a story about a former slave who is accredited with being the very first black master distiller in the country, and that's a distiller, someone who has mastered the process of distilling whiskey. Now, it's very important we understand. We all know that the most famous whiskey in the United States of America is obviously
the famous whiskey.
The most famous whiskey in the United States.
Jack Daniels.
It would have to be Jack Daniels, and so we always accredited Jack Daniels whiskey with Jack Daniels himself. But little people know that Jack Daniels learned the entire process of distilling whiskey from a former slave. And his name, they called him Uncle Nearest. Uncle Nearest was a former slave that worked in a worked in a distillery on a farm by his former slave owner. And this former slave owner had a young Jack Daniels also come and work in that distillery. And during Jack Daniels' time in that distillery, he was taught by Uncle Nearest, who was the head distiller at that distillery, how to distill whiskey and to learn all the arts and tricks and trades of whiskey. Now, of course, because Uncle Nearest was a former slave and later on became a free man after emancipation, he still didn't have the opportunities to go off and start a large distillery and become filthy rich and pass down wealth throughout all his generations. And so when Jack Daniels finally did that and went and created his distillery, the very first person he went and hired as his master distiller was the newly freed Uncle Nearest.
Nathan Nearest Green. Right. You know what I'm saying? Yes, he was a quote unquote, he was a slave. You know what I'm saying? Not one of the, first slave, but he was already a master distiller for, for his slave master, Mr. Green. You understand what I'm saying? Right. So he already had the knowledge. He'd been doing it for his own, and I have to emphasize this, his whole slave life, making whiskey for his master. That's what he was doing, making whiskey for his master. So after, the Civil War, quote unquote, quote unquote, they so-called freed the slave, but before that, because he got, Mr. Green Nearest, he got lent out to another person. Right. You know what I'm saying? Because he's a slave. Right. And that's how he ended up getting in contact with Jack Daniels, a younger Jack Daniels, to train him free. You know what I'm saying? Right. To train him free. So whiskey is a general term. You know what I'm saying? Whiskey, whiskey is like I said, it's a general term. Scotch, island, you know what I'm saying? From the island, stuff like that. That's all whiskey. Right. But you know what I'm saying? But we know, you know what I'm saying? But when you're dealing with America wanted to be different. They wanted to be different. So underneath the umbrella that they call their whiskey, it calls a bourbon. Correct. Now, one thing with America got strict standards. And and what you was bringing out so hard by the One West about the method of how to make this bourbon, this American whiskey was, you know what I'm saying, was Uncle Nearest standard. Right. Uncle Nearest standard. You cannot call your bourbon without doing the Uncle Nearest method. The method. Damn right. The method. You got to realize that in American, American whiskey, everything got to be fresh.
Right.
Fresh barrels, fresh charcoal, fresh trees, fresh everything to call yourself, you know what I'm saying, bourbon, and it have to be 3 years or less.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? To call it American bourbon. The standards are so hard. You cannot reuse American cask. You cannot use that. You know what I'm saying? You cannot use that. You have to use American cask. Yes.
Come on, sir.
Salakia, if I may, it's so heavy you bring that out, cause it's saying fresh barrels and fresh everything. As we look at the world today, as we are consumers in this world, and we have to go to the heathens, like the scripture says, for everything. When we go inside these wineries and food places, everything is dirty down, rat hair, roaches, and all this stuff. But this is the heathen's kingdom, and he's a dirty man. But when Judah runs this kingdom, you're gonna have fresh wine barrels to drink out of, man.
Right. That's right.
Damn right.
That's right.
Damn right. Give him a hand.
That's right.
Judah is the queen man. He's the queen man.
That's right.
Damn right.
That's right. And if I may, I don't want, you know what I'm saying, when you was talking about the fresh, that's where they got their standards from. Because everything with it, he was a master distiller. Guaranteed he wasn't using the same thing. His process. It was his process. And it was, you know what I'm saying, and it was happening in Tennessee. That's Tennessee.
Damn
whiskey.
right. Tennessee whiskey. And so, as you can see on the title of the show, we initially entitled the show Uncle Nearest versus Jack Daniels. But by doing further research, we realized that all bourbon is Uncle Nearest. And so we just going to use today to honor that, brother, for all the great bourbon that you have. Every time you drink bourbon, Tennessee bourbon, or any American whiskey, pay homage to this former slave, Uncle Nearest, a black man who perfected this method. And you can take that Also, it's another thing that's important. It's another thing that's important that we realize. We also want to shout out this sister, Fawn Weaver. Because had it not been for the sister's diligence, we would have never known about Uncle Nearest. And let me tell you something. Every great invention in this country has its origins in slavery or some black man that came up with some great idea that the history and legacy was buried under someone like Jack Daniels. This is just one sister who was diligent enough to go and do the history and find out about Uncle Nearest. And through this sister's persistence, she was able to go find old letters and go find old memoirs and the autobiographies of Jack Daniels. And she was able to take that information and bring it out about the greatness of Uncle Nearest and his contributions in creating bourbon. And we'll just yeah, and we'll just we're gonna honor Uncle Nearest today and read a little bit off the back of the bottle. So Uncle Nearest 1884 continues.
Let me, if I may, this is the sister, you know what I'm saying? Well, how do you pronounce her first
name?
Her
name is Fawn Weaver.
Fawn Weaver. This is her distillery.
Right.
This is the sister distillery. Let me remind. For you to get Uncle Nearest, guess who's producing the Uncle Nearest? This sister right here.
Right.
Her distillery. So only way that you can get Uncle Nearest is coming out her distillery. And this is the sister.
This sister was not only able to be a historian and do the history and bring out this history about this great black man, but then she was able to take that history and use it to start her own distillery and get into the business. And so here, let it be known, we always honor black-owned businesses. And today we'll be honoring Uncle Nearest and also this sister Fawn Weaver for bringing out this great history about a great man.
Yeah, you can read
Uncle Nearest 1884 continues to be the remarkable legacy of Tennessee distilling legend Nearest Green, the first known African-American master distiller. Each small batch is curated by his great-great-granddaughter. Whiskey Magazine 2021 Master Blender of the Year.
If I may, I apologize. Let me let you know what small batch means. Small batch is like a selected. You know what I'm saying? Because they have like endless of holding places of these casks. You know what I'm saying? Endless holding places of the casks.
Right.
So the master blender would go through all these, you know what I'm saying, barrels of, you know what I'm saying, of spirits.
Right.
Just sitting in barrels of grabbing flavors, you know what I'm saying? In the winter time, in the summertime, all that flavor, you know what I'm saying? The wood expanding and attracting,
Right.
So they select this small batch of good, you know what I'm saying, these good spirits. And this is where, you know what I'm saying, this is where the master blend, the master taster comes into play. Because they know the difference, you know what I'm saying? The same barrels that's on the west side of the factory is different. It's a different taste on the west side of the factory.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So what it mean? Like when it says small batch, when you read small batch means a selected, you know what I'm saying, particular tasting whiskey on the other side of the factory. Salaki, sir. That was selected by the master distiller.
Most High in Christ. And we're gonna bring up a picture. This particular picture here, if you can see, the
grandson.
that's I believe that's the grandson or the son of Uncle Nearest. There aren't any known pictures. There aren't any known pictures of Nearest Green himself, but his family.
Sitting on the other
yeah,
side.
in the white hat, that's Jack Daniels there.
That's why.
And I believe that's either the grandson or the son of Nearest Green. Nearest Green's family to this day still works for Jack Daniels, but it's only recently, within the last few years, that Jack Daniels actually decided to come out and give the man his props. You know. So it's important here and let it be known that we give him his props and give his family his props for their legacy in bourbon. Because as Blacks and Hispanics, when we think about bourbon, the first thing that comes to our mind is, you know, some long beard oppressor, you know, sitting in Tennessee playing one of them, the ding, 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 you know what I'm saying?
With the
spoons. You know, but we're here to learn today that the entire process of creating bourbon was created by a black man. And let me tell you something else. Had they not distorted our history as much, we would find out that every good thing this disgusting nation has profited on has come from a black man in some way, shape, or form. You know, it just took the diligence of one sister to figure out this one particular thing. And so we're going to give a quick drink, you know, and, you know, honor the legacy.
Let me just say this. Also, it was some information back in the, I think, as even the early 60s or the late 70s when they was talking about this. But it got swept underneath the rug.
Right, it got swept underneath the rug.
Sister redubbed it. You know, she came across that information by accident.
Right.
And started looking into it. And now you said now she have a distillery.
She actually said that she was overseas and got a hold of an Old Times magazine newspaper that actually gave credit to Nearest Green, and then she got intrigued and went and then she ended up buying her own farm, creating a distillery, and created Uncle Nearest. Uncle Nearest, this brand of Uncle Nearest is a black-owned business. And so again,
which just reached $100 million in sales.
Just reached $100 million in sales. Give that a hand. And I believe they also donated $1 million to HBCU. So let's go ahead and give a drink here.
Wait.
Try out this fine bourbon.
Just remember, we have to enjoy this. I know we don't have a lot of time, but I like to enjoy my bourbon. You know what I mean? The bourbon. So right now we're gonna want to see the legs. We want to see those. Shake it. You know what I mean? Right here. See those nice long legs. They do got nice long legs.
Nice legs.
They got nice legs right here. It's coming down nicely right here. You know what I'm saying? We're gonna go in. Nice color too. This is not preservatives right here. You know what I'm saying? It's standard. This is standard brown right here. This is from the barrels. You know what I'm saying? There's no food coloring or anything like that. You know what I'm saying? That's one thing about bourbon. Everything got to be fresh.
Right.
Everything. They're not trying to hear anything. It's so restricted. So right now we're gonna go in with the nose. See right there. And one thing about what American bourbon, majority of their they make is through corn. You know what I'm saying? That's why you get a lot of sweet taste. You know what I'm saying? The main thing is also corn. And this is also, what is it, 96 proof? Yeah, this is 96, 46 by volume. So, you know what I'm saying? It's pretty much up there. But that's good for a bourbon.
I got to tell you, I like that much better than Jack Daniels.
Oh.
I like that much better than Jack Daniels. Which goes to show that as time comes on, we improve on the process. Uncle Nearest made, the best bourbon. And this sister was able to come along years later, and in my personal opinion, made a better bourbon.
Made a better bourbon?
Made a better bourbon, man. So let's give a big shout out, a round of applause to Fawn Weaver, Uncle Nearest, and to all the Black innovators, all the former slaves who died without getting recognition for their efforts and their great contribution.
I would like to, this is my last statement. I would like to say, it's only whiskey that will bring peace to cognac.
Matter of fact,
in Hariala's defense,